What up, Blakester?
Good morning, sunshine.
What's up? What's up, dude?
You know the drill. It's Monday. TGIM.
You a funny guy.
Yeah.
Hey, Virgil.
Monday, my favorite day of the week. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. How are you?
Yeah, they just seem to be flying by those days of the week.
I tell you what, man, but we did get quite a bit accomplished over the weekend. I don't know about you guys. I got a lot accomplished.
Oh
So,
my
you guys
God.
got your wins ready?
I always have my wins ready. You
All
know
right.
that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So if you're new here, we are streaming on YouTube. This is our Monday Mastermind. My name is Robert Blakely. I'm going to be your host and have been the host. We've been going live now for what time?
Now go.
All right.
It's noon now.
Oh, okay. All right. I see. And we don't have to have the fireflies in here. We can get rid of those crazy things. Remove, do not report. All right. Back to what I was saying. My name is Robert Blakely, known as the Blakester. I will be your host today for today's Monday Mastermind. Through the Lost Transition, we've been doing this every Monday now for 5 years. 5 years, have not missed a beat. Pat myself on the back just a little bit for that, because ultimately it's all about consistency when it comes to this business or this industry. So what do we do here? Every Monday we meet. We have a true mastermind. You're going to hear from some of the audience members, hear about some of their wins because I love living vicariously through them. And I've got a little bit of a educational piece, if you will. This is week 22. We're going to be talking about stories over stats. I'm going to give you a little bit of viewpoint from my perspective and what I've learned over the past 40 years when it comes to marketing. And we're going to have some fun. We'll open it up and we're always going to drop some kind of gold nugget. So make sure that you're taking notes. If you want to join us live, if you're watching on YouTube, want to join us live, just go into your browser there and type in the lost trans. I'm sorry, my apologies. Live dot the lost transition.com and you can join us live. Right? We do this every Monday. So that being said, I want to get the show started. We do have some slides, as I mentioned, and I got a lot to talk about when it comes to the stories over stats. So any one of you two care to start us off? I know we're going to have a few more people that'll probably pop in, but you know how Mondays are. They like to drag their feet. Um,
Okay, I'm gonna go since I know
all right, you go, girl.
Virgil will say ladies first. So I wanted to share today that my win was now look, I joined the mastermind through the Lost Transitions back office. So I went to the calendar, the link was already there, I clicked join and I'm in. No more searching for stuff. And I so that's pretty cool. So
So it's nice and easy, is what you're saying?
oh, most definitely. Most definitely. It was super, it was like clicking one button. I usually have you on the little widget on the web thingy, but since I was already in the back office, I just said, well, let me just see if this calendar thing. So I clicked on the calendar. It had the Lost Transition on there. Click here to join. I'm in. So that was no sweat.
I love it. I love it. So,
And
so
mhm.
it sounds like to me what you're saying is the system is working.
Yes, I was going to say that link is working. That's working perfectly.
Yeah.
So don't you and Claude don't change it.
All right.
The
Noted. Noted.
I worked in the back office this week, and I mean just the upgrades that you're doing in terms of being in one of the pages or the I call it the system, and being able to go through a walkthrough that you perhaps you've forgotten because you went through it before, but there's little buttons and they pop up and you can get rid of them if you already know what they are, what to do. But as a refresher or as a new user, I just had to go in and it took you on a little tour and you learned some things that it could do that you didn't know that it did. So it was pretty. So yes, that's working. And I'm still working with the timer thing because me and the time, there's always stuff that's going on. So I get sidetracked. But the simple fact that, one more thing. The simple fact that I can create, I will do all of my creating for posts within the Lost Transitions back office because I can link it to the Facebook that I'm using. I have it. I have other pages and I don't know whatever you call those things, X and Twitter and whatever. So, but I don't use them because I want to get this one going, the Facebook one going. So, when I couldn't sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, I was up creating things for my munchkins, little posts that I had planned to put into the Lost Transition. So now I can click that link and it goes there and it goes to the Facebook thing automatically. I post it, and then when people click to read more, then it takes them back to the Lost Transition where they can read more and join for free. So that was like the bomb. So I
Really?
got I got to do my post this morning. But just wanted to share that those are I mean I created like seven not infographics but munchkin things. You'll see them.
Mhm.
Uh, so I create one for every week, and it's I actually I love the system. It's working for me so far. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that, from going from paper to index cards to sheets of paper with people's information on it to notebooks and planner. This is so easy for me. So thank you for doing
Good,
that. And
good.
I'm going to be quiet now.
Well, thank you for that feedback, and that's honest feedback from you, and I love it. You're making my heart very happy. I love the fact that it's already working, and we're really not even done with it. So I will be working on the timer later on today. Those are some of my wins, obviously, over this weekend. I was talking about that we got a lot accomplished. Inside the Lost Transition, you'll see a walkthrough for every single page, except for the conference room, which I'm still working on. Uh, but it gives you the ability, like she said, to know exactly what's going on or how to use it. And then I also, for your feedback, Rita, I did just fix the referral link at the bottom of the emails that you had mentioned. So that's good to go. That's fixed as well. Uh, Same thing for any one of you guys that are in there right now. If you find any errors or something's wrong, let me know. I'll get right on it pretty fast. We got a lot of that accomplished. Even got the yard done this weekend. Thank you for sharing that, Rita. I appreciate it. Any other wins you guys want to share? Feel free to raise your hand or say hello.
Hello.
Hey,
Um,
good morning.
Good morning, everybody. It's been well, I would say I'll keep my wins simple to keep the time consistent, and that was actually the big win, again, being consistent. Uh, administrative Administrative wise, I was able to complete one of the first offer of collaboration that we will be rolling out for our label there. And I actually got to sign an artist, and the whole of the week that came by was not only going through the immersion process, the artist's team, and in the studio, and our our guys handling the productions, and also starting to organize the process that we're going to follow with the team to build that story, to package the artist properly. And so far, everything is going so well. We even had yesterday an event, and he got to perform. It was a connection event that I wanted to attend because it places me back into another industry that I left, which is fashion. And the whole point here is to be able to blend in fashion and music, using
Right.
fashion as the engine to promote the music, but also the music as an engine to promote the fashion and the culture. So that symbiotic relationship is what I'm trying to kind of do, bridging my two passions And that was exactly what happened on Monday or yesterday. It's no, same. I keep saying Monday, but it was actually on Saturday. Hence the lag of time that I'm getting through. Things are happening so fast. So it was on Saturday. They went there. It allowed me not only to rekindle some old connections that I had there, but both the artist that I was chaperoning and the cultural influencer that I am also coaching got to perform out of nowhere off schedule, which was very rewarding. I was seeing
Yeah.
both the team of the artist group and the team of the cultural influencers activating and feeding off each other's moves. So it was glorious. So that was the win. And again, consistency, right? Because every one of these weeks just invites more workload, more connections, more to do on the list. So consistency is really beyond everything that I just explained. Being
Uh,
able to maintain the rhythm and the direction, the consistency is really what I'm counting as a win. The rest is just a result of that consistency.
I love it, brother. I love it. We already talked about this and said it. Yeah, you have to have consistency. Question for you that popped up into my head. Are you doing any recording at all, like video recording of any of your interactions?
Um, right now we're using that. I'm using those in session behind the scenes studio to start filming not only the rollout that we're having on TikTok, but also I included a video element in the application. So all the behind the scene elaborated video are going to be hosted there, and the the YouTube channel. Yes, I'm capturing as much as I can every moment spent with these artists when possible. It's the whole point of the content agency behind it, and it's a monster to feed. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Well, good for you, man. I'm glad to hear that. That just popped up into my head to ask you because I know how important that is. I don't know if you guys know or not because I don't talk a lot about it, but I was actually a VP of a record label down there in Florida called As I Am Records. So I'm very in tune with what you're talking about, Virgil, and I love hearing about how it's coming together. Most of all, obviously, you couldn't do it if you didn't have consistency. But behind that consistency, I got one word that pops up into my head, and that's passion. Right? So if you're not passionate about what you're doing, maybe you not might not be doing the right thing.
the whole branding is
Yeah,
centered on that, right? Fueled by creation is the manifestation of passion. And I often say to these guys is I only feedback what you give me. If there's no movement on your side, well, there won't be any movement on my side. And boy,
right.
oh boy, am I ripping what I'm sowing because now I'm getting those. Yeah. So yeah,
But isn't it cool and interesting though too? If you just listen with that level one listening and hear what people are saying, and then you can go give them what they're asking for, like it's how it works. Like you can make it so easy, right? And then that's networking at its finest. And then just say, anybody else that would fit into this groove, or I don't know if your brother's hanging around, tell your brother, hey, break out your camera, be filming as much as you can, and then that's a lot of stuff that obviously you could take and put into a video and then piece that out, which you already know all that fun stuff. So I'm not gonna beat
that's
a dead
actually one of
horse.
the content strategy that I'm forcing
Yeah.
on artists in the sense that they have to build their own team and their team has to be actively creating, capturing content around them. So the fact that I'm always capturing content when we're out there is also forcing them to do the same thing. And the idea is that if we are many streaming one same shared experience and uh, bring it out there from different point of view, that is when we are really creating that buzz around what we are doing and showing
Yeah.
that there is movement, there is motion behind the conversation that we're having. So
Amen.
it's really just a simple process that I'm implementing, but even at that level of simplicity, uh, it's a lot of moving part that you have to keep track of, right? So
Either way, it sounds like you're leading by example. So I appreciate you sharing that, brother. And thank you for bringing those wins to the table, brother. Anybody else have some wins to share? And hello, everyone. Hi, Dr. Lisa. Hi, Johnny. Hi, Tony. Hi, Elizabetta. Really great to see you. Hi, Jorge. And hello, Vicky. Love that graphic. Anybody else got some wins that they want to share? Vicky?
Yes, I am very, very pleased. I feel like in the last 3 weeks that I have weight lifted off my shoulders. I feel confident and positive about everything I'm doing, and it's changed the way I look at everything now.
Mm,
And so it's just been really great. So
good,
I find that as a very big personal win.
good. Hey, and between us all here, I want you to try to dig into the TLT and bring all those leads that you have, put them into the CRM and start working them.
I was going to ask you about that. Because of when you sent the message, you said try a couple.
Mhm.
Well, if I import any CSV leads, it's going to be more than a couple. You know what I'm
Perfect.
saying?
That's,
Okay, so I just wanted to double check on that before I did that. But
you have the
yeah,
green
I'm going to
light.
bring all my great life people I think over there for now. So,
You have a green light, and once you like when you upgrade and you see the CRM and how it works, I think that you're going to be pleasantly pleased. You came in a little late. Rita was talking about how she loves it and how the simplicity is, and you can connect your Google Calendar. You'll get an email when Monday comes, or even the inner circle meetings that we have, and then
hmm
right from the calendar, you can click on it, and boom, it'll open up right to this room. It's all
cool, very cool.
coordinated. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It makes life much simpler. That's the whole premise here. So thank you for sharing. Thanks for being here. Jorge, what do you got, brother? You do some flying lately?
Well, I have I have an experience that it will become a great story to share.
I love it.
My my CFI, my instructor, took his airplane. He is based at West Houston, where I am working. I mean, uh, flying with him. So he took his airplane to Smithville to have it there for the annual inspection. And he asked me if I could pick him up. It's an hour and 30 minutes to drive and go there. I mean, I could have gone flying too, but it will be a bigger expense.
Sure.
But anyway, he left me his car to drive up there and pick him up. Is a VW Tiguan. I never drove one of those things. It's automatic. It was the first time I was driving that thing. And I thought about that. I said, this is kind of weird that I'm doing this because, yeah, I don't know this car. I don't know if it's good on brakes, if it's good on certain things. Well, anyway, too late. So I drove up there, and maybe 1/4 of the trip, the battery icon showed up that probably the battery was not receiving charge.
Are you talking about the new Volkswagen buses, the small buses, the electric?
No,
All
no,
the,
no, no. A VW that he's got is I guess it's newer than my car because that one has backup camera. Mine doesn't have backup camera. I
okay,
think they came like in, I don't know, maybe 2018 or something.
okay.
But anyway, from for about um, for about maybe 80 miles, I drove with that light on.
Hmm.
Funny thing is, I drove kind of fast. I was going like about 80 some miles on, and I got to Smithville at 5:20. Well, I left about 4:20, so I got there at 5:20, and I stopped at an O'Reilly, but they close at 5 p.m. So, and keep in mind, it was a Sunday and after hours. So anyway, I went to the airport to pick him up. He got there because he was actually taking some fun time, and so he landed at the airport where I was waiting for him. And I told him about the problem with the car. Actually, while I was driving, I told him about it, and he said, "Well, let's stop on a gas station and have it checked." But when you go to gas stations, you don't find that anymore. It's only convenience stuff. You can buy that soda there, but you cannot find a mechanic. So, so I went to the O'Reilly at Smithville, but they were closed. So anyway, I went to the airport, and I tried after I stopped there and turned off the car. I tried it, and it started again. I said, I don't know. Maybe it was a bad signal. So he came. We came on his car. He he cranked it up. It turned on again. I said, "Well, I guess it was a bad signal." So we started our ride back. As we were coming back, more lights starting to show up on his dashboard. So I told him, "Well, did we pass Lagrange?" I said, "No, we are close to it." He said, "Okay, I think we should at least, we should go there. Maybe we can buy a multimeter or something to check the battery voltage, or maybe stop at a auto parts store, and they might help us to solve this issue."
Yeah.
As we were about 7 miles from Lagrange, and the car started riding slow, and he said, "Well, it's getting difficult to steer," and he was showing the steering wheel thing. So I said, "Well, let's see if we can make it to Lagrange." And as we were getting closer, the car was getting slower. So he was driving on the shoulder. Anyway, I was telling, "Well, 4 miles, 3 miles, 2.1 miles," and but every time the car was going that very, very low. But I told him, "Well, at least the car is going faster than if we were jogging to go there."
Right.
So there were a bunch of lights, and in a couple of those lights, we were able to get it on green. That was great. But there were a couple of lights that we had to stop.
Uh-huh.
And as we were trying to take off from the light, it didn't want to go. So I was kind of showing at the people that were on the crossway that I was signaling them that like cutting the neck, like we are in trouble here, to so
Yeah.
them wouldn't be they wouldn't be too aggressive.
Right.
But at one time I thought, man, I'm gonna have to get off the car and maybe give it a push and see if it goes a little faster.
Yeah.
But we were also lucky. There were a couple of slopes that help us to accelerate the car. And I told him, "Well, we have two more lights to go, and then there's an O'Reilly there that is open. That actually was open till 8 o'clock." So um, we kept going very, very slow. Uh, he finally turned into the parking lot, and he had to wait for another car to pass because he was basically turning in front of him.
Uh-huh.
And basically the car went into the parking lot and quit. So we went into the O'Reilly, and I told that guy, "Hey, guys, we brought you a problem, and hopefully we don't make you go back home too late." Well, they kind of smile, and they came out to look at the car. And as soon as we opened well, I told him, well, I guess we might need an alternator, and we might have to recharge the battery. So anyway, one of the guys came with a little booster, and we opened the hood, and as soon as the hood was open, I looked at it, I said, well, I know where the problem is. The alternator belt is gone.
Oh,
So he put the booster, and we were able to take the car up to the up to one of the parking um, spots in front of the store,
mhm.
and and there was one guy that he tinkered with mechanic, and he actually put the belt there.
Nice.
And I mean, this was solved in the best way possible,
I love it.
because we didn't get stranded on the road.
Right.
We didn't have to look for an auto mechanic place that they will have to open after hours and maybe charge us extra or something.
Sure.
So it was funny. It was solved in the best way possible.
That's awesome.
So that's a tremendous story.
Yeah, I believe it, man. I am with you there, and you had me on the edge of my seat the entire time, which is funny. Again, I love how the universe works because of today's topic. We're going to talk about stories over stats. So thank you for sharing that story, and thanks. I'm glad that you made it back home safely. I thought it
And
was an electric car there for a moment. That's why I was asking you too what kind of vehicle it was, because recently I saw one of those new Volkswagen Bugs. I don't know if you guys have seen them.
yeah,
They're like the old school Vanagons, if you're familiar with that terminology. Because we had a
yeah,
Volkswagen
I
Bus
remember
where I was growing up.
the hippie VWs.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. The hippie vans, man.
yeah.
This one's a little bit shorter and it's all electric. I saw one the other day. I was intrigued, but I wouldn't get an all electric car. That's just
Yeah,
me.
but I think the electric cars, they go based on the charge on the battery. I don't think they
Sure.
have alternators. So
Right, right. I
some
knew it
might,
wasn't one of those when you said alternator bug.
yeah,
When it
some
clicked.
might charge back as you brake or something,
Right.
but I don't know. Anyway, that it was funny. It was
I love it.
a fantastic ending.
Good, good. Well, I hope you'll be friends with that person that put the belt on for you.
Well, he gave me a good tip, and because I
Good.
actually told my friends, well, maybe we should get something for them to eat and drink because they are getting out of their way. He said, don't worry, I'll leave them a nice tip. So
Nice. Good job. Good for you. Good job, brother. Appreciate that story. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else have any quick wins that they want to share?
I just want to say hi to everyone.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for being here. I love the fact that you're here. Thank you for joining us.
hi,
Yes.
Elizabeth.
Great
Uh,
to see you.
um,
Well, let's go ahead and I'm sorry, go ahead.
uh, I just want to say hi to everyone.
Hello.
Mm,
I'm glad
Yes.
you're here, Elizabeth. So let
Yes.
me go ahead and dig in like I was talking about with Jorge. Like that's an awesome story. Again, thank you for bringing that to our attention and sharing it with us because it perfectly aligns with what we're going to talk about today. As I mentioned, today is week 22 on this Monday Mastermind. We're going to talk about stories over stats. Again, you're going to hear my feedback, and anything that I try to share with you guys is always going to come from a psychological perspective on why these things either work or don't work, so to speak, right? So we're going to talk a little bit too about why people remember stories, not numbers. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I am going to mention a couple things that you might want to just kind of, again, take notes and jot down, and then research them on your own time so that you understand a little bit more because I'm not going to dive into it very deeply. Okay. So first thing is, I always talk about numbers, right? If you don't have numbers, then you don't know what the data is. It's a little bit difficult to know where you're at on the journey. Also, a little bit difficult for you to find out the improvement that you've had. But when it comes to stats, and maybe you're out there, or maybe you've seen this, is they don't really do much for you when it comes to the perspective of trying to attract clientele to you, right? I mean, it's nice to say that you have hundreds of clients that are all happy and satisfied and whatnot. But something that comes to my mind when I was putting these slides together is something that one of my mentors taught me, right? I've mentioned this before too. Again, this is just me. Take it for what you will. But he said to me, he said, Robert, he said, I don't care what you're making. What is your team making? And that really resonated with me because I wasn't one of those people that go out there and say, oh, well, I'm top 50 in the world for this company called Got Backup, even though I am, right? Which is kind of a neat little feat. I was more into, and the reason that I became that top 50 and even earned this little pin, top 2% of network marketers, yada, 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 was because I leaned on the successes of my team. I just like the way that we start this show, right? We start off with the people that are here that show up. But if somebody out there, right, you see them, they talk about it and say something like, oh, well, our product has a 94% satisfaction rate and saves users an average of 12 hours per week. That's all fine and dandy, but really what they hear is that whole blah, 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 or more correlated to Charlie Brown's wah, 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 right? Again, this is from a psychological perspective. And when it comes to communication and what we're telling people, it's important for us to have the skill set to be able to communicate properly, to share the message so that we can transfer that emotion and do the future pacing that we talked about, what, last week or the week before that, right? And actually work with your words in guiding somebody from point A to point Z. But if you're talking about stats themselves, stats don't really stick. They're not going to move people into action. The forward pacing things that we talked about will, right? But you have to make some kind of emotional connection, and stats aren't typically going to do it. You've probably heard this before, right? Facts tell, stories sell. This is another reason why you hear me talk about all the time, and I say, we don't want the glory, just tell your story, right? So many people have asked me, though, what does that mean, right? Some people, it takes a little bit of time to understand how to write that story or how to share that story, especially when it comes to network marketing, especially if they're using artificial intelligence, right? How do I tell the story in such a way? And in essence, right, how do I tell ChatGPT or what other artificial intelligence that you're using to create that post, right? Because if you don't do it right, people can tell that it's not you, that it's not authentic, that it's not your voice. All of a sudden, overnight, you're a professional, right? Then it doesn't necessarily work, especially if people are watching you, which they are, even though you think they're not, right? So we got to get better at telling stories, right? We've mentioned this before too. Get really good at telling stories and asking questions. That's what you need to learn and get really good at. Now, why do stories work? Again, this is where you want to kind of jot this down. On the left-hand side there, we go over into the little brain science of this stuff. There's two brain regions, right? It's called Broca's and Wernicke's. If you want to write that down or screenshot it. But what they deal with is just the language processing, right? So we're talking about communication. If you're giving just stats, it's not it's not it's not affecting more of your cortex in different regions of the brain. All it's doing is just processing the language, right? But if you're telling stories, I want you to think for a moment. I don't know about you, but again, I felt like I was on the edge of my seat as our friend was telling the story. right? When you're telling that story, it's like seven different brain regions that it's actually tapping into. And in fact, you've heard me talk about painting a picture before. While you're telling the story, people can actually visualize inside of their head. While he was sharing that story, I envisioned them actually going slowly down the street. I envisioned them stopping at the light. And I was waiting for him to tell me, okay, he got out and started pushing the car, right? The point is that stories make people feel like they're living that experience. So if you could tell the story in such a fashion that gets them thinking about it and starting to visualize that picture, that's where that comes into play with what we talked about when it comes to future pacing. Okay. Raise your hand if you're with me. You understand? You with me? Cool. Okay. Because again, all these little things connect. And once you connect all these dots and you learn how to communicate effectively and all those things that we talk about here and learn the psychology behind it, sales is then becomes nothing more than just a simple conversation, right? And the more conversations that you have, the closer that you get to being able to help somebody that actually needs what it is that you have. When you tell a story, the listener's brain is actually in sync with yours, just as I just explained to you. Like I was totally in sync with Jorge and what he was saying. I was on the edge of my seat, in fact, right? So what happened? There was a connection that was made. That's the big thing. That's the takeaway from this, right? When you tell stories, there's a connection that can be made, and that's an easy way also to build rapport, right? If you're able to tell a story in such a fashion and they can be inside of their head and see it, automatically that's going to help with rapport, right? They're going to say, "Hey, this person is pretty cool," and "Oh, I like that story," or they can actually envision themselves within that story, right? I mean, how many times? I know I've had problems on the street before and with a vehicle, had to push it, right? Most of us run into that problem at some time in our life. So tell more stories. But here's how you want to tell the stories, right? There's a framework for it. Write this down, take a screenshot, whatever you guys need to do. But there's four steps, right? So number one is the setup. And in essence, that's who's the hero. That what's their world like? Goes into connection with the future pacing. So to clarify, you are not the hero. Okay, give me a two in the chat area there if you understand. You are not the hero. The whole setup on who's the hero would be the person that you're talking to. Yes? Everybody with me? You are not the hero. You will be the hero, but you are not the hero in the story framework, just to clarify. And then number two, what's the struggle? What problem did they face? You've heard me talk about the pain in the marketplace. What was that pain? And if you can make it directly relatable to whatever it is that you're sharing with other people, I was going to say selling, but you can literally just share information with people, right? And then number three, the solution. How did they find the answer? Or what was that answer? And then number four, what's their life like now? So the after transformation. So this again goes in conjunction with the future pacing. If you go and you held the story, you put them in the picture as the hero, talk about the struggle that they're going through right now, what the answer is, and then what it looks like after they found the answer. Everybody with me? That's storytelling 101. You can get deeper down this path to where you're actually hitting dopamine triggers, which is even cooler once you understand that stuff. You'll be able to have people that are more engaged in your conversation, right? Also will help with your pacing of your conversation as well, right? With that pacing comes tonality changes, obviously, right? And if you're putting all those things together, that's transferring that emotion. That's having them see that picture in their head and walking them through A to Z. Okay. Dots connect on that one, right? Rita? Where did she go? Uh-oh. I think we lost her. Did we lose Rita? Ah, we did. We lost her for some reason. Put a backup co-host in here. So here's three stories that we call them closer needs, right? And when I talk about closing, I want to be very clear about this and the things that we used to do in the direct marketing. Like we would challenge each other when it came to the closing techniques, like who could do this or who could do that better. When you run in a team like that and they're always challenging you, then obviously those are great ways to get better. But ultimately, the three stories that you need to learn how to tell is number one, your story, right? Why you do this. Like you're showing up here at Monday Mastermind. I know obviously you love being here with me and I love you being here with us. But what was your transformation? As an example, popping off the top of my head, I think about Vicky, right? And what she's gone through. If you don't know her story, you should connect with Vicky and find out. Ask her story. We've seen quite the change and we've seen the passion that she has for what it is that she's doing. And she's got a ton of leads that she needs to follow up with. But what is your story? That's what we need to be clear on this. That's one story that you need to know. And then second, what are the customer stories that you can tell? What are the real results from real people like Vicky, right? Especially if you can picture that person and they say, "Oh, you know what? This reminds me of so and so's story." Then I would share so and so's story. I come back and I think about ugh, sad, scary thought, my ex-wife and her story and how she had lost over 100 pounds. And that was the biggest driver that would drive people to us and her particularly to join the business. Why? Well, because they wanted to know how she lost 100 pounds, right? What was the secret? Right? Everybody likes to know the secret. Just like reminds me of the whole Tom and Jerry thing. Right? And then third, their story. And we already demonstrated that briefly here on the last slide when you talk about the story framework. What's their story? What's the future that you paint for them? Again, it's communication. People are only going to know what you tell them. So if you communicate properly and you tell the story properly, then they will see it in their head and they will move forward. This is why you might have experienced it yourself to where you've got teammates that aren't really moving forward or doing much, right? You're not telling the story right. Or maybe you're up there just talking about your stats. I'm not saying anybody in here is doing that, but if you're watching out there and it relates to you, then maybe this will make sense to you. But the story itself is going to build trust, right? And then customer stories are going to build the proof, aka also known as testimonials, right? So if you help somebody and they feel marvelous because of what you did, try to get a testimonial from them. Right? It'll help you in the long run. Their stories gonna build the desire to make them move forward. So you want to master all three of those. Okay. So here's how we could take the data instead of talking about data, and oh, we did this, we did that, or the company this, the company that. We can take that data and actually turn it into a story if we do it the right way. This is what we're talking about here today. Why you want to pay attention and take notes if you need to. Okay. So I'm not saying that you have to abandon stats because data is super important. Numbers don't lie. And when you know how to read the data, that tells you what adjustments you need to make, especially in a business role, right? But if you're looking at stats only on that left-hand side, it might sound something like, well, 87% of our members see results in the first 30 days. And I say that with my television commercial voice, right? For a reason. But on the right-hand side, you'll see a better explanation when you're taking the stats and put it in a story format. Yeah, I know Sarah was skeptical too. Like 30 days later, she called me crying. She'd already made back her investment, believe it or not. Right? So what's the formula for this? Because we like to give out formulas and explain this in such a fashion that anybody can understand it. You take the name plus whatever the situation is, plus the transformation, and then the emotion. Remember me talking about the emotion, right? And how sales is nothing more than a transference of emotion. It's a story. Imagine that. So imagine if you got really good at telling stories and asking questions, how good your business could grow, right? So now you go and you think about shameless plug, using the lost transition, you're putting your contacts in there, you're getting through more of your conversations, and all you're doing through those is asking questions and figuring out where they go. Are they going to take a look at it? Are they going to try it? Or do you need to book another meeting? And you can get through those contacts and figure it out and have more of those conversations to tell more stories and ask more questions, right? And what you're really looking for is that one real person, right? That one real person that needs what it is that you have or that you can solve that problem for. Then it's easy to make a sale, quote unquote, right? So dig into the story triggering, okay? Here's a few phrases that'll help you launch into a story. You can write this down, uh, take a screenshot, whatever it is. This is again, I just like to give you guys tips so that you can use this into your repertoire. You hear me talking about scripting. Once you find out what these story triggers are for you that work the best, then use them and use them all the time. To clarify, so you understand, whenever it rains, I always tell the same joke about, yeah, isn't this great weather? Pause. If you're a duck, right? That's the type of scripting that I'm talking about. So you can use something like, hey, let me tell you about someone just like you. Going back to what I was saying earlier, right? Especially if you can correlate whatever that person's problem is to somebody else that's already had that same problem but then solved it. Or you can use something like, oh, I'll never forget when, my mentor taught me about sales psychology, and then it made it just so much easier for me to talk to people. That gave me the confidence that I needed to be able to carry that emotion and show other people the same way. Right? All right, here's another one. Here's what happened to Rita after she started working with me. Right? Another one. You know what's funny? I used to think that too until you could pause for effect. Picture this. It's 90 days from now, and you met your launch goal, and you're out on the beach or the boat or whatever it is that you want to be out on, right? And then that rolls into that story. Hey, can I share something with you? This one is huge because it's it's very this is the way that I correlate this in my mind as I look at this. It's like taking your foot and put it right in the door, right? You hear me make correlations to doors because of all the direct marketing, but the doors I'm also talking about are in a person's mind. You can open or close those doors with simple conversation. Something like, "Can I share something with you?" And the right tonality is just like I said, it's like putting your foot in the door. There's not many people that will say, "No, you can't share anything with me." Right? At best, they might say they're not interested. But that's something that you have to perceive whether or not, what's their body language like? Or are they busy at the time? Are they underneath the car trying to work and you're like, can I share something with you? Obviously, it's not the best time to try to share something with somebody if they're busy doing something, right? But ultimately, the point is that if you're sitting there talking to somebody and saying, "Can I share something with you?" Odds of them saying, "Yeah, of course," are 99%, right? So again, I'm saying this to you guys because it's easy, really, to just have conversations. I talk about this whole network marketing thing and learning sales because it's easy to have conversations and we're not doing strenuous work. We're not out there digging ditches or doing something that we don't want to do. Right? I have a passion for creating now that, especially now that we have artificial intelligence, but creating the things that I need and that others need. And then now I can help others solve whatever their pain in the marketplace is, right? So those phrases signal like stop analyzing and then start feeling in the brain, right? That's the psychology behind it. When you open up one of those story triggers, they now have the door open within their brain. And now you're running through that story and you're guiding them through that story. Okay. Just want to make sure I connect that, connect the dots for you guys. I'm watching us on YouTube on the TV here. It's kind of cool. So, with that being said, there needs to be an emotional anchor attached to it, right? We talked about that emotion at the very end. So every story needs one emotional moment that sticks. So the moment they like cried happy tears or called their spouse with the news, quit their job. In this case, as I'm saying this, I think about Jorge's story and the emotional anchor of, hey, well, they almost ran out of juice and almost didn't make it home. Uh, I was thinking too, as far as the emotion, how they were going slow and almost had to get out of the car and push it. Right? I remember times that I had to push the car and I'm like, I don't want to push the car, you know? It's like something that you don't want to do. But there's that emotional anchor that I'm talking about. Now, when it correlates to something that you're talking about within your business, that correlates to that resemblance of that other person that reminded you of this other person. So yeah, um, let's use Dr. Lisa as an example. Yeah, Dr. Lisa cried happy tears when she found us. As a quick little, uh, made them enough money in 90 days so they could quit their job. Or maybe it was they paid off their debt, you know, took that dream vacation. Just have to figure out what that moment is, right? And then describe it as vividly as possible. And then you can even ask questions, right? Again, storytelling, if you want to get that person involved. So what would that day look like to you? And then let them start talking about it. Ooh, that's even deeper on the psychological level. And then once they're talking about it, guess what you do? Level one listening, right? And then you reverberate that to them. Notice I didn't say regurgitate. So reverberate that back to them so that they get that full picture and they go through that story, right? So here's an example of a complete story. Here's the setup. Let me tell you about Maria. Single mom, two jobs, absolutely exhausted. What was her struggle? Well, she tried everything. MLMs have failed, side hustles that went nowhere. She was about to give up on the dream of being home with her kids, which is something that she absolutely wants to do. She can't see her kids, like her not being there for her kids. Then she found the lost transition. Imagine that. She was skeptical, of course. I mean, who wouldn't be, right? But she gave it 90 days. And then last month she called me. She was crying. Not sad tears, they were happy tears. She just quit her second job. She gets to pick her kids up from school now every single day. Right? That's the emotional anchor. Everybody with me? Yeah. So set up, struggle, solution, success. Now, the beautiful thing about what we're talking and teaching you guys here is that this is the same thing that you can do in video format, right? So the same thing you do in video format this way. Hey, if they're looking for that information, then all it is just sharing that video, i.e., a clone of yourself, not an artificial intelligent clone, but a clone. That, and then that could be part of your script, i.e., oh, cool. Here, let me send you this video and let me know what you think. Right? If it's not for you, it's okay. You won't hurt my feelings. I've had them surgically removed, right? And you remove that pressure from them. Now they're going to say, yeah, I'll take a look at it, right? And then tell the story. Here's some story killers because if you know me, you've been around me for any amount of time. I don't want to just show you like, hey, yeah, this is the stuff to do. And I like to show you both sides of the coin, right? Especially when it comes to sales, because there's things that you should not do, right? There's things that you have to be consciously aware of that a lot of people are not aware of. But here's some story killers, right? What not to do. As I mentioned earlier, making yourself the hero. So part of why I want to explain this for a moment is you want to be a third party, like neutral, if that makes sense, right? So your customer is always going to be the hero. You're going to be the guide for that hero. And the next thing is too many details, right? Keep it very tight. Like we talked about, use the setup, the struggle, the solution, and then what was the success? And that success has that emotional anchor attached to it. And then not having an emotional moment. Some people try to tell a story and then there's not an emotional connection or that anchor, so people aren't drawn into that story. That's why when you start watching a video and they don't tell the story the right way, you just automatically tune out. You're like, next, right? Or you scroll, right? There's no emotional moment. Especially at the very beginning, you want to be able to grab a person's attention within the first 3 seconds. Right? That's why we start off the show every time and say, hey, good morning, right? Pattern interrupt. There has to be an emotional moment, though. Find those tears, the breakthrough, the transformations, and then just generic stories that don't make that emotional connection. You want to use real names, real details, specificity, specificity, right, is very important. Make sure that it's believable, right? Um, I've said this before. I'll say it publicly. I'm not a liar. I don't, it's not something that I do. But back in the direct marketing door-to-door days, we would tell small white lies, right? Like going into somebody's house and be like, oh, I have that same TV, which wasn't the best thing to do. But if you found that TV and you actually did have it, then there's an actual emotional connection to it, right? And then you could talk about it specifically and people make that connection like, oh, okay. You have the same TV. I got the same TV. We're good. You know what I'm saying? Automatic report. Stories without purpose. Every story should answer, why should I care? Right? You want to make them feel like a gift, not a lecture. Just like Jorge and his, the gift that I felt was, hey, the resolution of them actually making it home safely. Right? I was waiting for the bad part. Like, oh, I knew he was sharing a win, but I thought there was something that might come out that was negative, which is really, really good when it comes to storytelling. Because if you tell the story and you think that you're going to tell the story and people are just going to like, how do I want to say this? If you tell the story in a way that they already know the outcome, there's not going to be a dopamine hit there, right? So therefore, they won't want to sit there for the story. Very key there. So let's find out about the takeaways, right? I'd love to hear your takeaways, but in the meantime, I want you to write down these 3 things for yourself moving forward, so that you know the what the scripting is for yourself, right? Write down what is your story. Use the formula that we talked about. Use setup, struggle, solution, and success. Vicky, I would love for you to sit down and be a model of this. and write it out. Number two, write out one customer success story that you can use this week, right? Especially when it's involved in your business. And then third, what's the emotional anchor in each story? What's the connection? Right? And then if you want, I'd love to see those shared inside the community in the Facebook or even inside the Lost Transition community as well. And we'll help you refine it if you need to. Okay? Anybody have some takeaways from today? Love to hear what you're thinking.
I
Um,
think
sorry, go ahead.
um, for me, the biggest takeaway was uh, their story, the third story, their story.
Right.
Because I've heard, past, present, future, and
Yeah.
what for your story or past, then the pivot, and then results, and then the future for your story. But not many people talk about their story.
For me, what I learned originally was to tell your story, but the way that you told your story was where you were, where you are now, and where you plan on being.
Mm-hmm.
Like a three-step process, so to speak, right? Um, and throughout that three-step process, obviously, you still want to have some kind of emotional anchor so that they see that. And I love that takeaway for you, especially being able to, take it and say that that's a really important part, especially pulling yourself out of the hero role, because a lot of people might think that they're the hero because they're the ones that lost all the weight or it's their story. You want to try to refrain from using your story personally. If they ask, then yeah, boom, you're going to hit them with your story, right? Makes me think of Brett every time I think of something like that. If you don't know, Brett is a dear friend that passed away a couple years ago, and he had not told his story. It wasn't on his website. As soon as he started telling his story and his struggle and what he went through, more people started paying attention, right? So thank you for that feedback and that takeaway. Anybody else have any takeaways from today?
I have one. It's this approach reminds me a lot of the actual process that you should be following when you're writing even your UVP or your brand story, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because the brand is the manifestation of that specific thing. Okay, well, there's a situation, there's a hero around which this is happening. There is the solution that offers the brand through the success stories of his achievements. So it's a lot like that. It's a lot like it's the same process normally, and actually is echoing through my mind as being very similar, but the way you present it, you and show it, it's actively using during the process of the conversation,
Right.
which gives it a lot more momentum. But this is how all and every story behind the brand, its achievement, its success, and its audience should be framed. Make
Right.
logic sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because once you understand too how to tap into the psychology of the brain, you understand what people's reactions are when you do or say certain things. Again, it just makes your life so much simpler. I mean, we already understand common behaviors or misbehaviors, right? Those are the simple things, such as, what comes to mind is, when your friend's not feeling well because they don't act the same, right? Those are common body language things. But even communication itself, a lot of people don't pay attention. They're not aware that their body language is actually speaking more than their words are, right? So when it comes to real life communication, even if you're, on a video or talking on the phone, if you can tell a story in such a fashion like what we're talking about and have them see the bigger picture, the really it comes down to them feeling like they're the ones that are in charge, right? It's not necessarily a technique that I would say getting on their side of the fence because it's actually completely different. But it's feeding them the knowledge so that they feel like they're the ones that came up with the solution, right? You know what I'm saying? And when they do that, it's again, it makes your life easier because then they're like, yeah, let's do it. Right? If they've already solved the problem in their mind, then the odds of them moving forward are much higher. So thank you for that feedback. So here's your challenge for this week, okay? Tell one story in your next conversation instead of just listing features, if that's what you've been doing. Just try to tell one story this week. So you get in, you get your contacts loaded up, you get into one, you start the conversation and have a story. Right? First, write them all down so you know what you're going to say before you do it. And then next week, I want you to tune in too, because we're going to talk about the 12-minute conversation, which is directly tied into the lost transition and the timer that's in there. It's all there for a reason, right? So I won't give it away, but some of you guys already know. But anyway, the most powerful person in the room is what? It's the one who can tell the best story, my friends. That being said, let's go out there, have fun, kick ass, take names, and we'll see you on How To Tuesday. And I don't know, Virgil, you're gonna have to reach out and let me know what are we doing for Wednesday.
Mhm. I'll message you directly in an hour or half an hour or so. Works?
All right, sounds good. I'll be around. I'll be here. Anyway, have a fantastic day today, guys. Choo choo. Love you. Bye bye. Thanks for joining us.
What
Bye,
would you like
everybody.